Right? He trusts them if he's asking them to look into it. And when all of them looked into it and reported back to him, no, we found nothing. Unless we're going to literally make the concession that Trump might actually be a delusional psycho man, at that point, should he not have realized, like, well, okay, maybe there's
something. I think he should have realized the day of the election that he lost the election, but that's not. But that's
sure. But
I'm just
asking. I'm saying that, like, at that point, should he not have known that for him to go and propagate those claims that he'd asked all of the people he trusted to research, and then for him to take those claims to Michigan and to Georgia, and then publicly and to try to convince people to throw out the election, you don't think that?
But you're doing the same thing. You're reverting to, should a reasonable person have known? Yes, a reasonable person should have known. Did Donald Trump know? That's a different question.
In today's video, Destiny absolutely destroys Ben Shapiro in a heated debate on Lex Fridman. From the very start, Destiny pushed Ben Shapiro into a corner, forcing him to finally admit what so many on the right refused to say out loud, that Donald Trump incited the chaos on January 6th. Shapiro tries to do his usual mental gymnastics, dodging, deflecting, but Destiny just keeps hitting him with facts after facts, calmly dismantling every excuse in real time. So let's dive in and watch how Destiny shuts down Ben Shapiro on the Lex Fridman podcast.
And so conflating those two questions is going to get you into some messy territory. By the way, this is why Jack Smith charged the way Jack Smith charged.
Yeah, which was
Jack Smith did not charge conspiracy. Jack Smith did not charge insurrection. He did not charge seditious conspiracy, right? If the reason is because Jack Smith is a good lawyer. What he's doing is he's actually broadly, I would say, pretty obviously expanding statutory coverage in weird areas in order to cover a thing that doesn't quite fit into any of these legal categories. But the point that I'm making is that Jack Smith is on my side of this. He doesn't think that he can actually establish the intent necessary to convict under a seditious conspiracy or an insurrection.
I agree with that, but I think a lot of the underlying facts, though, because he does bring up those calls to Raffensperger in Georgia, he does bring up in the indictments that they were knowingly false information. So it seems like that's going to be part of the case, maybe not to convict on any of the 4 particular charges that he mentioned, but it seems like that's probably going to be part of what he's going to have to establish in court to convict Trump.
So I want to look at the actual text of the charges. So I'm sorry that I don't have them memorized. I believe one's a fraud charge that generally does not apply to cases like this. Generally, the fraud charge is like you're trying to steal money from the government.
Sure, fraud has been used pretty broadly in the past, though. It doesn't have to just be, because Smith has done oral arguments in response to a lot of the claims by Trump's lawyers. This was one of them. The infinite civil and criminal immunity was another one of them, where he cites past cases where these types of things, because I think it was to defraud of civil rights, I think was the 4th charge.
Right, so the defraud of civil rights is usually somebody standing in the actual like voting house door and preventing you from voting, not you have a specious legal theory that you espouse in court about whether those votes should be thrown out.
Sure. Although I don't like when we say specious legal theory and novel application, which I do agree some of these in some ways is novel. I don't think we've ever also had a president try to do this before. It is a novel situation where somebody has resisted the peaceful transfer of power this clearly in so many different ways.
Well, if you're talking about the legal cases, that's not true. But Gore sued in 2000. Right? I mean, if we're talking about the legal cases,
comparable to Gore, if this was comparable to Gore, then
I'm not saying it's comparable to Gore. I'm saying that if the idea is that espousing a legal theory in court amounts to de facto some form of election denial or interference in some way, that's not, as a general principle, it's over-inclusive.
Sure. Gore wasn't trying to decertify the vote, though, for states, right? They challenged their thing to the Supreme Court. They lost their case in the Supreme Court, and then power transfer happened.
Right. And Donald Trump had a bunch of legal challenges, and then he had a rally, and then there was a riot, and then he left power.
Yeah, but the Eastman theory of what Pence could do in Congress is a far cry away.
A truly shitty theory. I mean, make no mistake. It's
but not
really
just shitty. I think that if any Democrat had done this, I feel like we'd be looking at it in a far different lens. As in, we would be using terms like attempted coup, subversion of peaceful transfer of power. If a Democrat vice president had tried to essentially say that in Congress they could throw away the vote.
Destiny held his ground way better than Ben Shapiro expected. The debate centered around Trump's actions after the 2020 election, January 6th, and whether Trump knew he lost but chose to lie anyway. Destiny nailed it. Trump had every possible advisor telling him there was no widespread fraud, and he still ran around trying to get Georgia officials and others to overturn the results. That's not delusion, that's intent. Ben Shapiro tried to lawyer his way out, claiming we can't prove what Trump knew, but Destiny rightly pointed out that Trump asked for investigations, got the answers, and then lied anyway. That matters a lot, and Jack Smith's indictments reflect this. The fraud and civil rights charges aren't just legal stretches, they're about knowingly pushing false claims about undermined democracy. Also, Destiny highlighted a key difference. Gore conceded after his loss was legally settled. Trump, on the other hand, rallied a mob, pushed fake electors, and floated a theory that Pence could just throw out votes. That's not just legal theory, that's authoritarian delusion. And one more thing, it's worth remembering that over 60 courts rejected Trump's claims. Even his own judges ruled against him. So when people say we don't know what Trump knew, that's nonsense. The man was told repeatedly. He just didn't care.
So I think what I want to get to here, actually, so we can be more specific,
Sure.
is why are these terms important? We agree on, largely speaking, what happened. I think the characterization of the term, we keep kind of bouncing around between two different categories, and I want to make sure we
dump the legal stuff.
Okay,
actually,
okay. So we're just
not looking at incite because, like you said, Jack Smith, nobody's charging with incitement, and I don't believe insurrection is a part of it. So we're dumping legal. Just in terms of like a president that is trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. So we do call that a bloodless coup or whatever contemporaneous term you want to use.
Right. So prevent the peaceful transfer of power with all means, or using means that are inappropriate. Not quite the same thing.
Using means that are inappropriate or illegal.
Okay. Inappropriate. Okay, so illegal. I don't think so. I don't think that these charges actually meet the criteria for the various charges, and we can discuss each case if you want.
Sure.
As far as inappropriate, sure. I think tons of inappropriate stuff. I mean, inappropriate seems.
The reason why I don't like the word inappropriate, though, is because then conservatives are very quick to say, "Well, sure, he was inappropriate, but everybody was inappropriate."
I mean, I'll concede that he's more inappropriate than others. I just don't see
the most inappropriate.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, that's important to me, though. Does it not bother you that like Donald Trump sought through legal and extra legal and Trump magical ways of trying to entrench his power as president past when he should have been able to? Is that not something that is incredibly troublesome?
I mean, the question to me is the bigger question that I think the Democrats are trying to promote in this election cycle, which is this means he is a threat to democracy sufficient that if he were to win the election, there would not be another.
Is that not? But he tried to do that last time. Could he not try to next time?
And I mean, he could try to do whatever he wants, presumably, and he would fail the same way that he did last time.
Why do we think that?
Because he failed.
Because
there was a riot, and within 3 hours, yes.
Like, let's say hypothetically, Lord, save me. Let's say hypothetically, Giuliani was the next head of the Department of Justice. Giuliani was the next Attorney General.
How would he be confirmed?
I'm not entirely sure if. Because so much of the Republican Party, despite feeling like they don't support Trump when it comes time to actually back him in Congress.
Also, I would have to check whether he would be barred by criminal conviction from holding. I don't know the answer to that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. Especially the 14th Amendment. We're figuring out a lot of this right now. Yeah.
Donald Trump wasn't just being rude or throwing a fit, he was actively working through legal and extra-legal means to try to stay in power after he lost. He wasn't just exploring novel legal theories, he called state officials and told them to find votes. He leaned on DOJ leadership to lie, he pushed a fake electoral scheme, and when all that didn't work, he whipped up a mob and told them to march to the Capitol. Destiny nailed it when he said this wasn't just poor behavior, it was a direct attempt to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power. Ben Shapiro tried to argue that since Trump failed, it's no big deal. But that's like saying a bank robbery isn't a problem because the guy didn't get the money. Intent matters, and Donald Trump clearly intended to stay in office by any means necessary. And let's talk about this threat to democracy thing. Destiny was spot on. Just because Trump didn't succeed last time doesn't mean we should shrug it off. What if the next time he's surrounded by loyalists in key positions? What if he installs a Giuliani type as AG who won't push back? The system held last time, but it was closer than we like to admit, and it was thanks to a handful of principled people under massive pressure. That's not a solid foundation for the future. Also, just a fact check, Trump's campaign lost over 60 court cases. His own DOJ said there was no widespread fraud, and yet he persisted. That's not just incompetence, it's deliberated disinformation, and it worked on tens of millions of Americans who still think the election was stolen.
But I mean, like, say if not Giuliani, say if there are any other number of insane people that Trump could theoretically put on his side of the government that wouldn't tell him no next time, because there were a lot of people that rebuked him. There were Republicans in a lot of the states, right? Raffensperger is one of them. There were Republicans in his own administration. You've got Rosen, you've got Barr. There was his own vice president. But like theoretically next time, and I feel like last time going in, I'm going to do a little bit of mind reading at macro. Maybe you agree, maybe disagree. I think that Trump kind of thought, one, I don't think Trump knows much at all about how the government works. I think we probably agree with that. I think Trump probably thought that if he had people that were like at least in his party and kind of camp, that they'll basically do whatever needs to be done to give him what he wants, and with no respect for process. But now that he sees that, well, it's not enough to just have allies. I need people that are fiercely allegiant to me. Would we not be worried that a guy that tried to essentially steal the election for real wouldn't try to pick people that would be more amenable to his plans in the next administration?
I believe in the checks and balances of American government. I believe they worked on January 6th. So if you're asking me, do I think that Trump has bad intent or could have bad intent with that sort of stuff? Sure. Do I believe that the guardrails held and will continue to hold? Also, sure.
So if somebody was running and they blatantly said, like, I don't want to use the fascist word, but if they said, like, I want to be an authoritarian, I'm going to abolish all elections, you would say, sure, he's saying that, but like, I don't think he can actually do it. So it's okay if he runs for president. You don't care at all as long as you feel like the guardrails.
I mean, I might prefer other candidates, but I think that also one of the things that you do is that politicians, again, this would be an exceptional circumstance, but politicians constantly make promises about the things that they are going to do and then don't fulfill. And we tend to take those out in the wash, meaning that, if I promise that day one, as Donald Trump has pledged to do, that he's going to deport literally every illegal immigrant to the country, do I think he's actually going to do that? I mean, I really highly doubt it. He didn't do it last time he was in office. That's just, there are many examples of this.
I agree.
Do I think, here's my question. Do you think the guardrails are going to fail to hold?
I'm not sure.
Really?
Yeah, because I think the issue is one, when it's election time, Republicans are spineless in office. And I don't know how many congressmen would support what he wants just because they want to win re-election or because they think it's inevitable anyway.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that happened in 2022 is Democrats ran directly on this platform and a bunch of Republicans lost who were running on this platform. Literally every Secretary of State who ran on the Donald Trump we should deny elections platform lost in every state.
Sure, but other Republicans
a great way to
that
lose
have been
office is this.
Sure, but I mean, like, look at what happened with like Kinzinger and Cheney, right? Who were very like staunchly anti-Trump after J6 for that select committee, right? Kinzinger didn't even run again, and Cheney lost her election by I think the widest margin that anybody has ever lost an election ever in like all of U.S. politics.
People who were not yet born voted against.
Yeah,
it, yes.
I guess it's a surprising position to me for if we're looking at like principled stances of government. The idea that a man who has, and I think we both agree on this, that Donald Trump's only allegiance is to Donald Trump, right? We agree on that. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
I don't think it's the only thing he cares about. I think it's certainly the largest thing he cares about.
It's the largest thing he cares about, right? Sure. So if you've got a man who only cares about himself.
Welcome to politics. I mean, it may be more.
But that's not even.
It may be more with Trump, but it's certainly not unique to Trump.
I think that the issue with Trump, too, though, is I think he's even a threat to the Republican Party, in which I think you would mostly agree with me, maybe not overall, but on every individual point. Trump picks bad candidates. He has no concern for the future of the Republican Party. Like, for instance, I think there is a chance, I don't think it'll happen because of how the polling looks now, but if Trump didn't get the nomination, I think Trump would say, screw it and run as an independent because he thinks he can win or whatever.
Destiny was laser focused on something that often downplayed. Trump learned from his failures in 2020. Back then, a handful of Republicans in key positions, Raffensperger in Georgia, Mike Pence, and even Bill Barr, refused to help him overturn the election. But what happens next time if Trump installs only loyalists who won't push back? Destiny's point was simple but powerful. Just because the system held last time doesn't mean it will again. And he's right. There's already reporting that Trump wants to surround himself with people who won't say no. His allies have talked about Schedule F to fire career civil servants and replace them with loyalists. This isn't just a theory, it's part of a plan. Ben Shapiro kept falling back on this idea that the guardrails will hold, but that's a dangerous assumption. Guardrails are only as strong as the people holding them up. And if those people are purged and replaced with yes men, then what? Do we just hope for the best? Also, Destiny was right to point out that Trump's behavior isn't just a threat to Democrats or the left, it's a threat to the Republican Party too. His picks for candidates in 2022 flopped. He tanked Georgia's Senate race in 2021 by pushing voter fraud claims that discouraged his own base from turning out. Trump isn't loyal to the GOP at all. He's loyal to Trump himself. Full stop. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.